Hey everyone. Just wanted to thank you all for taking a few minutes of your day to check over Micah and I's blog. We've had a lot of fun putting it together and we've learned a lot through this experience, and we hope that you have too. Don't forget, at the bottom of the post, there is a spot where you can leave some feedback for us, and we would really appreciate that so that we can know how to improve our lessons for the future. One of the things that we wanted to talk about today was natural and logical consequences. So, why are natural and logical consequences important? One of my favorite quotes that I found as I was doing research this week is from an article written by Paul R. Rasmussen. And what he says is that they did a research project, and he tells a little bit more about it. And it says that researchers followed a group of children for more than 3 decades and discovered that children who developed self control, defined as a willingness to control impulses and meet responsibilities, were significantly less prone to negative health and behavioral outcomes in adulthood than were children who had failed to develop self control. Of particular importance from this study was that self control was a learned quality that functioned independently to other factors in that study. So what I really liked about that it talks about how when we teach children to have responsibility for their actions, it helps them to control their impulses and to meet their responsibilities, that they feel like they have control and that they do have things that they need to accomplish and that someone's not going to do it for them. I also really liked how it talked about how it's a learned trait. Obviously, like some kids might have an easier time with learning how to be responsible than others, but in the end, it's something that we can teach our children as we continue to use natural and logical consequences and other parenting techniques that we've talked about throughout the blog. So, what are natural consequences? Natural consequences are essentially when something happens naturally, the consequence comes naturally. And that's kind of confusing, but I think it'll make more sense as I share some personal experiences and also just some different ideas of ways that that can be implemented in your life. So, for example, my husband and I, we were talking about this, and I asked him a couple questions, like for him personally, when he felt like natural consequences played a role in his growing up life. And his family loved to go dirt biking. And so at a young age, he learned how to fix up dirt bikes, how to take care of them, how to change the oil in them. And there were times where his parents would tell him, like, hey, don't forget to change the oil or don't forget to tune up this specific part. And if he chose not to do it, then the next time they went riding, he wasn't able to go along until he fixed the problem. And so the natural consequence for him not listening to his parents in that circumstance was that he didn't get to have the reward of going dirt biking. Some other examples of natural consequences could be things like if your child chooses not to eat dinner, then when they go to bed, they're going to be hungry. And so it's just that when the child still has the opportunity to make the choice, but the natural consequence is something that they experience just from what happens naturally in the world. So then logical consequences, how do those work? And I used to get these so confused, but as I've done more research, it's made a lot more sense to me. So logical consequences are essentially that parents create consequences to children's actions that tie directly to their behavior. So for example, when I was growing up, my mom had a rule that if you didn't eat what she cooked, then you had to make your own food. And I don't know if she always was like super strict with this, but with my brother, who was a super picky eater, she was. So my brother actually, he a lot of times wouldn't want to eat whatever my mom cooked just because he didn't like almost anything. He didn't like tomatoes or spaghetti or anything like that. So if she made spaghetti and he didn't want to eat it, then instead of forcing him to eat it, she would say, you don't have to eat it, but you have to make whatever you eat yourself. I'm not doing 2 meals for you. So that being said, instead of my brother having a nice hot meal that my mom had cooked and prepared, instead he would eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But for him, he was fine with that, but there was still a consequence for his action that he didn't get the warm, nice meal. He got something different, but it made a good experience for him and my mom because then she wasn't worried about making a second dinner. Some other examples that I thought of that I've heard of different parents using is if children leave their clothes on the ground, then it's no longer the mom's responsibility or the dad's responsibility to do the laundry. The child has to do their own laundry if they leave their clothes on the ground instead of picking them up for their parents. Another one for maybe kids, if you have older kids or teenagers, or in the future when your kids are older, if you allow them to use the car and they don't bring it back on time, then the logical consequence is that they don't get to use the car. So those are some of the different things that I've thought of, and I'm sure that as you continue to read, and you'll be able to brainstorm more ideas that you can use personally in your family. I wanted to share one more quote with you. It just is from the same article by Paul R. Rasmussen, and the article is called "The Tasks, Challenges, and Obstacles of Parenting." And he talks about how children, if things are done for them, that they're not going to really learn how to take care of themselves. And he just says to ask children why they do not clean up a mess they made, and often they will say, "I don't know." This may be an unacceptable answer to an adult, but it is probably accurate for the child. If children were more insightful, they might say, "Because I find making messes quite pleasant and cleaning up messes rather unpleasant. That's why I don't choose to clean them up. Plus, I know that if I avoid cleaning the mess, you, my loving parent, will clean it up for me." So the challenge of parenting is teaching children that some unpleasant things simply just need to be done. That part of life is doing things that you don't always want to do. And natural and logical consequences are a great way to do that. When we use natural and logical consequences, we'll be able to find that children really do respond better to discussion rather than yelling or maybe scolding or threatening. When they feel like they're involved in coming up with the consequences and that those consequences fit together with their actions, they're going to be much more likely to be responsive to the way that we parent. Anyway, that's all that I wanted to share with you today. I appreciate you watching this video. And like I said, feel free to leave comments and just feedback. We'd really love to hear from you. And again, thank you so much for checking out our blog. Thanks.